Dunque, innanzitutto un saluto a tutti dall'Australia, poi visto che sono qua e con l'occasione di farlo ho incontrato una blogger che arriva dal Malawi che ha delle storie molto interessanti da raccontarci, magari potrebbero interessare anche voi, quindi le videoregistro e ve le mando e buona conferenza a tutti.
Hi, my name is Musa Gondwe, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Science Communication Program at the University of Western Australia.
And now can you tell me a little bit about your blog? What is the goal of your blog?
I started a blog called AfriSci Heroes, or African Science Heroes, about 3 years ago, and the blog came out of a fellowship I had at the University of Cambridge on the public understanding of science in Africa. During the 6-month fellowship, I realized that there's not a lot of stories about African scientists. If you go onto the internet and you type African scientist, you'll find African American scientists, but you'll hardly find African scientists. And even if you go into the library and if you're trying to look for biographies of African scientists, you won't find any. And I think it's important to share stories, because sharing stories inspires young minds. It leaves a legacy behind. It inspires other scientists to have, different ideas about how they can research scientists. So my aim was basically to share stories and motivate and inspire people.
Okay. And can you share a couple of stories with us?
Sure. There's many different types of scientists that I've written about, but I think the main ones that I really enjoyed their stories is Frederick, who possibly isn't a typical scientist. He is an inventor, and he's an inventor who has very little background in science. When I wrote a blog about him and I made a video about him, it got picked up by another blog, and then that blog got picked up by a French news channel, and that French news channel got picked up then by an Italian newspaper, and then that Italian newspaper wrote about it, and then he got invited to attend a conference in Italy. And now he's a local hero. He's been supported by different projects from Slow Food, that's the organization that invited him to Italy, and he's real inspiration to the kids in that village of what you can do if you've got some crazy ideas, but you communicate those ideas and you share those stories. But I think more recently, the scientist that I've come across or I've written about is Kamija Piri. He's also from Malawi. But what I like about his story is a lot of scientists in Africa tend to do research that's driven by a Western agenda. And Kamija Piri spent time working in a Western institution investigating malaria and public health. But now he's gone off and set up his own programs in Malawi. And as an African scientist, he's asking the questions that he wants to ask, and he's getting funded to do that, as opposed to chasing the grants which have particular agendas or guidelines that you need to fulfill. A third scientist, who I think is absolutely inspirational, is a female physicist from Nigeria. The fact that she's a female physicist and she's a head of department in Nigeria, I think is a great story. She won a prize last year, the L'Oreal Women in Science Prize, and she's the first female academic head of department in that university, and she's doing research on the ionosphere and how the ionosphere can potentially influence climate change. So I think those are 3 great stories that I can share. I forgot to mention her name. Her name is Francesca Neke, and she's at the University of Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. And the address of your blog is?
www.africiheroes.wordpress.com, and Africi Heroes is spelled AFRISCI Heroes.wordpress.
Okay, thank you very much, Musa.